Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, another Drago Dog Walk Talk. It is the 20th of August, and man, the summer coming to a close fast. Yeah, unfortunately, I will moan and complain about this because I prefer summer to last a couple more months, but it is what it is. Drago, take a look. Show your smiley face. Drago. Ooh. Yeah. Sorry, he seems more interested in what's below my feet than looking at the camera. So, as always, we have much to talk about. We will cover some of it because it seems to be generating a lot faster than it can be talked about. And there's new theaters opening up in this fight all the time. Especially. So, where shall we begin? Well, let's begin with a report that came out of the British military command that has stated at the rate that things are going, it will take Russia 4 years to conquer and liberate the Donbass. Which I guess is a good improvement, because last year they were saying 10 years. And before that, something like 20 years. What, of course, they're not mentioning is, again, a war of attrition. A war of attrition means our job is not to take territory, it's to exterminate the enemy. And then the territory goes, because there's nobody left to defend it. Then the big breakthroughs and the big ride-alongs, where we go, oh, look, there's a village. We just passed that village. That's our village. Next village. And so on and so on. Of course, the British don't want to admit this to their own public, that they're bankrupting. First of all, it was about 4 days ago, there was a British, I think it was a Vice Minister of Defense. I don't remember his name. Watching a program with him, and he's talking about, the UK is already at war with Russia. We're at war with Russia. Russia is our enemy, our perpetual ever enemy, which seems to be the case for the English, because they're still playing the great game, even though historical data and archives have shown Russia never played the great game. In fact, not only does Russia not have any desire for India, Pakistan, today's India and Pakistan, those territories, Afghanistan. Russia didn't even know there was a great game going on. This is all in the sick inbred brains of the British elites and their great game. So they made sure to make an enemy out of Russia, and they continue to do this at every opportunity. You'd think you'd be a natural ally compared to anybody else. But, stupid is as stupid does. And we continue to see stupid in action. Had to give him a treat. Come on. Давай. So anyways, but the real reason, because he mentions the real reason, he says, since we are in a state of war with Russia, well, not a declared war, obviously, because if there was a declared war, Big Ben would probably be sticking out of a very burned out Parliament building, and much worse. But since we're in a non-declared war, but we're at war with Russia, we need to have total control over the British economy and society and declare martial law. And there you get to the point of it. For all of you Brits out there watching this, martial law. You see, you've been protesting way too much. You've been naughty little subjects and serfs. How dare you go out there that your kids are being raped by grooming gangs, your women and children are being murdered in the streets, and the men too. Так. Что ты? Пошли. Are being murdered in the streets. How dare you, get upset that you're being replaced, that you have a two-tier system of justice. You have the jihadists can walk around with machetes, and you'll get 5 years for a penknife, and so on and so on. Martial law, baby. That's what it's all about. That's what's waiting for the British. They already don't have a freedom of speech. They barely have a freedom of assembly. And then only if they come out in mass groups that the police can't arrest everyone. And now they're going to get martial law. There you go. The real reason the British need this war in any form they can. as they're moving this Flamingo missile of theirs, which looks a lot like the old German, I think V1s. The Nazis were using to blitzkrieg Berlin. I'm sorry. I'm sounding like Trump right now. The blitzkrieg London. Yeah, Trump announced that he settled the 35-year war between Azerbaijan and Albania. Well, or some other A-named country from, with an A letter in it somewhere. Geography in America. It's always a hoot to watch. So, anyways, we go back to this point of attrition warfare. Сядь. There. So we go back to the point of attrition warfare. And what do we have? We have the issue of Pokrovsk. Yes, Russia had a big breakthrough north of Pokrovsk. The center portion of that breakthrough area has not been secured by regular heavy infantry. So you're talking about mechanized infantry and the armor. While the edges of it in the further northern regions were first taken by various infiltration forces, special forces, that were able to grab the territory. They weren't able to hold it though, so yeah, about 40-50% of it was taken back by the Ukrainians. But to do this, Zelensky had to pull whatever reserves he had and throw them into Pokrovsk, which has created quite a few other issues. Kupiansk, for example, is falling to the north, and once Kupiansk goes, Krasny Limon is next, and once Krasny Limon to the southwest is the gates to Slaviansk. So once that goes, Russia's at the high ground and it starts moving south, and artillery can range in for Slaviansk, and Slaviansk is in a very big problem. Additionally, Konstantinovka, there's fighting inside the city already, because while they were concentrating to stop the Pokrovsk threat, which is really outrunning its own heavy units by these special designation units and infiltration units. So they overreacted, as that was planned. They threw in everything they had to stop that and consolidate the front. Meanwhile, the rest of the front starts collapsing, because whatever few units they had that they really needed to do anything with, those units are gone. They're fighting it out in and around Pokrovsk and getting shelled heavily. So there's that. They stabilized Pokrovsk as a city also with counterattacks, but again, at the cost of possibly losing 3 or 4 or 5 other areas that up and down the front line that are just as important. Again, this is robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then robbing Paul to pay Peter, and robbing Peter to pay Paul again. But every time there's a few pennies that fall through your hands. So the sum that you can use for one or the other is getting smaller and smaller. Пошли. Драго, вперед. Обратно. So yeah, the U.S. burned to death 500,000 Japanese in just one firebombing storm. Let's not forget that. Oh, by the way, before we forget, please like and share this video. If you want to support me in my work, by all means, I would more than appreciate it. Even sharing is supporting. So like, subscribe. I always forget to say this. So I'm going to do it now while the thought hit me, because I'll forget later on. It's just one of those things. Драго, сядь. It never fails. Whenever I'm recording, there's just a massive amount of cars that suddenly appear, going back and forth, and he's looking at them and wanting a treat. Пошли. Yeah, he's getting jealous. I'm got my face in his phone instead of giving him attention. Anyways, as I was saying, so the Japanese apparently want to give guarantees too, because they want to have a little go in the East again. Oh well, all these dying societies really want to get on this fast train to extinction land as fast as they can. That's what we seem to be seeing all over the place. So you got Stubby, the president of Finland, who he knows something about fighting Russians. Let's review this on Finland. First of all, when the Soviet Union went in negotiations with Finland, they offered land in exchange for land around St. Petersburg, Leningrad, to make sure Leningrad couldn't be taken under siege. Negotiations were going, then the British and the French intervened, pushed the Finns into saying no. Later they got Nazi German help while they were fighting the Red Army. And what's interesting is some of the KGB documents that have been coming out, was that in 1941, the British and the French were planning an attack on the Soviet Union through Finland and through Iran. And through Turkey, which is a way Turkey kept an active army standing on the borders of the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union had to keep an army group in the Caucasus even while everybody's fighting everywhere else. Because that's what you had. Actually. So yeah, you had that situation going on. Well, you know, just for record's sake, Finland got off so easy compared to what it should have gotten. Finland not only was bombarding Leningrad from the north, killing civilians, but they were running concentration camps for Russians or non-Finns who were in the territories that they grabbed and held for about 2.5 years in Russian Karelia. So in those territories, the Finns were running concentration camps, murdering tens of thousands of civilians. Stalin let them off for having them change sides when they started fighting the Germans, and gave them perpetual neutrality, which perpetual apparently to the Finns means a whole lot differently than what perpetually seems to mean in the dictionary. So Finland wants to go at it again. I mean, that's obvious enough. What they don't understand is no Russian soldiers aren't going to be charging into the Finnish swamps and forests. They're going to close the border, bombard any military bases. Come here. And then going to take out the Finnish infrastructure. You know, ports, electric power plants, heating plants, everything like that. All the stuff that you need kind of to survive the relatively cold Finnish winter. And then hunger and starvation and cold will do the rest. I mean, they don't seem to understand technology's kind of moved along since 1939, 1940. They all want to be that hero sniper in the garden taking out hordes of Soviet soldiers. The legends that they all grew up on. Things aren't going to be anything, things weren't like that to begin with. They were bad in 1939. It was actually the Winter War that helped reshape the Red Army that allowed it to survive 1941, 1942, and then come back victorious to the end of the war, including against the Finns. When the counter movement started, the Finns got thinned real quick. So apparently they want to fight. They want to replay. All of them seem to want to replay. I guess their grandparents' memories are dead and in the ground, and the grandkids are all retarded and genetically defective, including Macron, part of that soy boy band, who is now saying the Russians are animals that always gonna want to eat us. They're cannibals that are gonna want to destroy us, and blah and blah and blah and blah. So, to the French, how fast do you want to be bred out of existence? Because, you know, if I wasn't one of those immigrants, I'd really be pushing for this war. Because the immigrants that are in are not going to be fighting. And the French are going to be leaving lots of widows behind. It's going to be really good news for that mass population replacement that's coming in. That's actively, it's actively taking place at incredible rates. I mean, the French make up less than half the births in France. Just let that sink in. That's one generation to be in a demographic minority. 2 generations to be in an insignificant demographic minority. The French are going bye-bye. The British are going bye-bye. Most of Western Europe is going bye-bye. Either going to be facing having to go into a civil war and trying to grab power, or sitting around and just going extinct. But hey, that's how that works. And it's gotten to such a point you can't even ignore it. I mean, sure, the liberal left will be screaming, "Oh, this is just conspiracy theories and racism," but I mean, it's so blatantly obvious now that you have to be blind, deaf, dumb, and mute, and hit several times beside the head to be able to not see this or ignore it, unless you're actually doing that on purpose, not seeing it and ignoring it. So that's the situation we have right now. It's not getting better. The West, just so we understand, the West needs this war to go on as long as possible. Everything they're saying about putting contingents on the ground, whether they really want to or not, it doesn't matter. They're saying they're pushing all the buttons to make sure there will never be any kind of compromise. And you know, I'm glad for that. Like I said, the compromise should be none. And the treaty should be capitulation. And we'll get to that. We'll absolutely get to that. What's going to happen next, I don't know. We'll see. Then we have Vučić, by the way. I wish I could call this clown world. But Vučić, Serbia's Vučić, who's gone full EU Sophia fund, he just signed a contract with Israel for $1.5 billion worth of drones and rocket artillery. You really think the Serbian army's getting that? What they'll be doing, just like they've been doing with their own military production, is they're going to third-party kit it over to Czech or over to Poland, and that way it's going to go straight to Ukraine. Once Ukraine is defeated, and it will be defeated, whether there's any Ukrainians left, that's something up in the air. But Ukraine will be defeated. There's going to be a lot of reckoning with a lot of these people. Vučić is one of those betrayers. You know, the others, you know their stances, where they are. Like Macron or Starmer or Never Hear Starmer and all these others. Meloni, I mean, she betrayed her. She betrayed her position early on and her electorate. So, and she's flooding, totally flooding Italy with these refugees, if you want to call them that, replacement population. In fact, I'm going to be talking to a friend of mine who is a professor, political professor in Italy, and we will be soon discussing those topics. So that video will be coming out a bit later. Won't give away the name just yet. Just so he doesn't have any problems all of a sudden, because Italy, like in the rest of the USSR, the USSR suppression of free speech is a given right of the government. You know, the best thing about democracy in the West is it really doesn't give a damn about what the people want. That's the best thing about democracy in the West. The will of the people is as irrelevant as a gnat is to an elephant, or to a, better yet, as a gnat is to a whale diving deep under the ocean. Absolutely irrelevant. They don't hear it, they don't see it, and they don't care. So, yes, there's that. And these are the people, I mean, they're still living, you know, they're living in the pre-internet world. Well, where's the democracy? Where this? Where that? And you start pointing them out to the very facts that get published of what they're doing. And they have no words for it, because what, they think nobody sees anything? Nobody knows anything? That's why they're suppressing the internet as much as they can. But it's still not working. It's all still getting out. This reminds me, you know what this reminds me of? when it all first became apparent, the power of the internet, if it's not absolutely controlled, was when Bill Clinton was president of the United States, and there were riots in Seattle, echo riots. Well, I wouldn't call them even riots. They're demonstrations. And then the mass police brutality started coming out in pictures, because the official news, the pocket monkey news of the West, of course, of America, and by then it was pocket monkey media already, left and right, weren't reporting on all this. They're talking about how all these evil demonstrators were being, stopped from whatever it was that they were doing and demonstrating, and blah, 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 and how vicious they were, and they were attacking the police, and all this other crap. What came out when those pictures was absolute police brutality against absolutely peaceful demonstrators. I mean, people sitting there on the ground, and the police coming up with shooting rubber bullets almost point blank. Rubber bullets aren't rubber. Let's begin with that. They're a steel core bullet with plastic sheathing. So yeah, at a distance of maybe 5-6 yards, they will bruise and possibly break your ribs. Point blank, they can kill you. And there's quite a few pictures where they shot the French, for example, Macron, a man of the people. His police are shooting the people, and going right through people's hands, arms, and there's photographs of it. Big holes in the person's hand that you can't be repaired at that point, because it takes the bones and everything right out. Somebody raised their hand up or something, protect themselves. So yes, that is the West. And that's when it all first started coming out really blatantly, how just evil the West really was. It didn't take long. It's just that most of these pictures couldn't come out because the pocket monkey press, even back in the 90s, mid-90s and early 90s, they just wouldn't tell you anything except what they were told to tell you. But then they could still get away with it because there's no alternative info stream. But the internet created an alternative info stream, and it became a very, very, very big problem for Clinton and all the other Western leaders that they're still dealing with, and they're dealing in more and more draconian ways. No matter what they've tried, whatever platforms they've tried to control, it's still not working well enough. So there's that. So that's the situation we live in right now. And like I said, the Western leaders, the Western sophonts are Queaslings. They are all voicing the very points that are going to make sure there couldn't possibly be any kind of peace deal until there's total victory. And I thank them for that. They're too stupid to realize that in the end this is going to turn out very, very badly for them. It may take longer, but it's going to turn out very badly for them. And for the Ukrainians, it's going to be terminal. But they're talking about, we'll have troops on the ground, we'll have bases, we'll pump up the Ukrainian military again, we're going to do this, do that, everything that, to make sure that there can never be a peace deal. And again, I and the vast majority of the more conservative, more, I guess if you want to call it right wing, I don't know if you want to call it that, but the hardcore, or yeah, that's a better word for that, the more hardcore militaristic Russian intellectuals, elites. I don't know if I put myself in those ranks. You can judge whether or not I should. But overall, I'm talking about people I know, of course. They all want, in the military, and the guys, the grunt on the ground, whom I quite will relate to, they all want victory. And if that victory means Paris falls or London falls, so be it. This is the mentality of the Russian people. You've poked the bear for 30 friggin' years. The bear is bloodthirsty, he's tasted blood, and he's not gonna calm down until you've submitted. Whether that submission means, let's make a peace deal and we really, really don't want to fight anymore, or that means Paris is burning and the Russian army is moving forward, that's up to you. That's really up to you. But the majority of these people, they don't either. The people back him, civilians back him, really don't understand this. They're ignorant and they're low information voters. They don't really understand that. But that's the direction it's all going. So to those that do understand it, get the word out. That's all I can say. Unless you really want the Russian army storming down Paris again. And Berlin, if it's a fourth time taking Berlin in 300 years, you know, and a second time taking Paris in 300 years, just think about it. Just think about that. Yeah, we haven't taken London yet, not once. That's still a possibility. I don't think, actually, the English would probably welcome it as anything that brings them back to sanity and conservatism and Christianity. I think the majority of people would actually welcome that. Let me know what you think. Would you like the Russian army to come wipe out the parasitical elites that are destroying your society? Would you like to be liberated? Let me know that. Let me know that in the comments. That'll be something interesting to read and watch. How many people prefer what they're living under now versus that evil traditional Christian country called Russia? Well, I think that the people watching this, probably the majority will say, yeah. But let me know in the comments. Thanks. God bless. Cheers.